Food got more expensive, gas got more expensive, housing got more expensive, everything became more expensive. I went through consumer proposal.
A second time going into a bankruptcy. Some people get involved in these situations, go through exactly what you went through, and then choose, because it's a choice, to do it again.
And my parents always said, take care of your credit, make sure you're good. I didn't listen.
Because there are some people, single people out there living in this world making $40,000 a year, and they're surviving through this.
How did you start to create your emergency fund? You said you had a little bit in place before your husband had to go to surgery.
I'm sure a lot of couples don't do that.
For anybody who's listening to this where you haven't actually accumulated, $10,000 in a savings account without even wanting to touch it, I think that's the first step.
Yes.
And all the company is doing is talking to an advisor and investing that money. They're doing what you could be doing on your own.
Hi, welcome to our podcast, Keeping It Real, where we talk about real financial problems. We come up with real financial solutions, and we talk to real people. My name's Irene Meyer.
And my name is Philip Villanueva, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Tyfani, and she's here to give us some insight on real life situations. Tyfani and I had met through social media, and she was reaching out to me because she was looking for an avenue to get into extra sources of income. And when we spoke, she found what I do very intriguing, and she's trying to get into this industry. So Tyfani, if you could tell our viewers why you initially started reaching out to me and give them insight onto who you are.
My spouse was going in for a major surgery, and we were looking for an extra income to be able to supplement his income as a higher earner in the home. This is the avenue kind of that we were looking for to be able to help our family stay strong in this time and to be able to keep moving forward without struggling.
So you saw a way of bringing in the extra source of income to help you with your current struggles. Now, what brought you, was it the fact that he's going for surgery that brought you into the current struggle situation, or was there other?
Not specifically. I had been looking for an avenue just to try and be able to find him something that he could do that was a little bit less strenuous in life in general prior to surgery. And then it was like crunch time, and it was just the timing of everything was perfect. It gave us something to look forward to be able to be happy about, and just even have an outlook on helping people in a different way than I do already it was perfect.
Are you both fully employed?
Yes.
Are you guys homeowners?
We're homeowners.
Do you have children?
We do. I have a stepdaughter.
Okay, so you have a daughter, but you found yourself in some financial turmoil. Have you ever found yourself in a world where you're like, hey, I have no stress financially, I'm very cushiony, and things are like good like that? Were you ever in that situation?
We were, yes, probably 3 to 5 years ago. COVID hit, and the first few years were great. We were in a good situation for the most part, minus my own. And then crisis skyrocketed. Life became hard. The bills that were always the same and our income kept going up changed, right? Food got more expensive, gas got more expensive, housing got more expensive, everything became more expensive. So what we thought was amazing high middle class to middle class income was not good enough to sustain an average home of 3 people. So having that extra income to be able to just do the extra things that we want to do that isn't just continuing just suffering all the time from money was a big avenue. And I struggle financially earlier on in life, and we're working on it now. So it's definitely been a struggle, but we're getting there.
I think a lot of people can probably relate to your story. Tyfani, do you mind if I jump in, Phil? Do you mind if I ask, what do you and your husband do for work?
So I'm an auto parts store manager, and he is a licensed mechanic he transferred from doing full-time like in-shop mechanics and dealers, and now he's doing BRP, which is like snowmobiles, sleds, 4x4s, side-by-sides, etc. It's a lot more fun, and he's broadened his everything. It's a lot less work for him just with his health conditions, but we love it.
And how old is your stepdaughter?
She's 9.
She's 9. Okay, so she's still having fun going into activities, has school pretty much for another 9 years at least. Do you live in Ontario?
We are in Ontario. We're based outside of the London area.
Gotcha. Okay, and you mentioned you're a homeowner now. Is that your forever home, or do you guys plan to move to a bigger home eventually or a smaller home eventually?
Currently renovating to see if we want it to be our forever home. And if not, then we'll move on to try and find something. We probably want to stay here just until Aubrey's completely done school. And then once she's done high school, then we'll make a decision if we're going to stay in a small town or if we want to go to a bigger city.
Gotcha. And so when you think to that time when things were good, you mentioned that, and then prices started to go up. Tell me what good felt like. Tell me what good meant to you.
There wasn't the constant struggle coming home, having to decide if you were going to buy school snacks or if you were going to get gas in your car to go to work. The biggest difference we found, we were able to buy groceries as needed, whenever. We didn't have to find the cheapest products. We could go out for supper every Friday as a family with friends and it'd be okay and not have to check the bank account to make sure that it wasn't going to cross paths with a bill. And now it's started to level out very slowly. But for a good couple years there, it was a big difference of, do we put $20 of gas in our car to get to work because I drive the farthest? Or do we make sure that she has school snacks? So then you run your car right down to the limits, which you really shouldn't be doing in the automotive industry. I get that, but
You ever said that?
we were doing. So at that point, you're putting stuff on credit cards. You could be running a line of credit. And that's not something we want to have to do if we don't have to do it. Just from my life experience, I prefer not to have to do any of that and just be more self-sufficient. But sometimes you have to ask for help too.
Was that the same kind of money management mindset growing up that you remember where things were really good? Or did it feel like growing up as a kid, mom and dad also struggled with prices going up?
Mom and dad struggled. You knew when years were good because you got the cool, awesome snacks and you got the new clothes, like the name brand. But then you also knew when they weren't doing good and when there was something wrong, you didn't get near as much. Sometimes you didn't get those extra snacks because of it. I grew up in a lower income family. They would be classified as middle class, but we were the low end of middle class. They owned their own home, everything, like it was okay, but it wasn't, you knew something was wrong. And my parents always said, take care of your credit, make sure you're good, don't spend your money, save your money, try and just get yourself to the right spot. And I didn't listen. And because of not listening, I put myself in a situation where in my early 20s, I had to go through consumer proposal. A consumer proposal gave me a little bit more variety of open because I didn't have that much debt. But I bought a car when I was 18. The car failed when I was 20. And 20-year-old, I didn't have a good enough job. The company wouldn't replace it under warranty and I had to pay for it. And a $6,500 engine to put in a vehicle that you're already paying for when you have other bills, I couldn't do it. So that car got repoed. And because I'm like, I can't fix it. So I'm not going to keep paying for it. And because that car repoed, I ended up in my consumer proposal because it just kept sitting there and revolving and my credit was really bad. There was no way to actually fix it. Now, I'm not going to out the car brand because I don't want to do that. And I work in automotive. But since then, and since that happened, that automotive brand has come out with mass recalls on engines. So they were failing and they were bad. The company just didn't realize or know when mine went bad. So I got the letter of recall and I went through the process with them and we came to a conclusion. My credit is tanked because of that. I went through consumer proposal. I lost everything that I'd tried to be working for. And I'm building it back up. I'm in a great position now, even though I'm still in a consumer proposal. But then it was horrible. I couldn't get a credit card. I couldn't qualify for the house. I couldn't get a car. Couldn't just get a basic phone bill without somebody being on there to help me get a phone bill. So it's one of those things where I'm like, just listen to anybody that tells you anything that could help you not end up in that situation. Yeah, it's not fun.
So like your parents and yourself, okay, your household income, are we talking over 100,000?
Right now?
Yeah. Would you say your parents back in the day, they were over 100,000
No.
in income? No? Okay, so you're doing better financially than your parents were. But for the generation of your parents when you were younger, their income was above it was still in the normal decent rate.
It was lower middle. Like, I'd say they made 45,000 combined.
Because there are some people, single people out there living in this world making 40,000 a year, and that's their annual income, and they're surviving through this. So your household income is 6 digits.
Yes.
Okay, but you are still going through financial struggle. So it doesn't matter what someone's income level is. These situations can happen. Now, let me ask you, back in those days, did your parents ever have financial guidance from anybody, or were they trying to figure it out on their own? That you know of.
Figure it out on their own.
And then you yourself, have you ever had financial guidance, or have you also been trying to figure it out on your own?
Also on my own.
I see. Now, if we could roll back time, if you had someone that you could turn to who was a financial expert, you think things would have been different?
100%.
100%. In what way?
If somebody would have been able to tell me how to money manage without having to completely indebt ourselves, or how to have a backup plan in the event of car failure or furnace failure, it would have helped me know that it was going to be okay instead of just consistent panic. When you're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't have somebody guiding you of how you can make it better in your financial world, you just have no idea how it actually can help you, how it can help your family.
That's really good, because a good advisor will always recommend having an emergency fund that's going to offset, let's say you were to lose your job for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
They will always try to build something up for you to that level if they can. A good advisor will do that. There are some who's just going to try and sell you products. Always consumer beware of those kind of situations. But a good advisor will always show you a way of doing that, as well as protecting your assets, right? Because no sense building up an emergency fund if you're not protecting yourself on the other side as well. Those are evidence and part of good planning that's always going to be in place. And I'm glad that back in hindsight, if you had that emergency fund per se, I think that's what you're talking about, an emergency fund. When your engine broke down, you would have had a cushion as opposed to going through a consumer proposal. If you had an advisor prior to going to that proposal to speak to, right? Now, you think it would have been a good idea to talk to an advisor prior to doing the proposal, or just you were in such a desperate mode that you were just going to go into the proposal?
If I would have talked to somebody prior, we probably could have figured out how to avoid the proposal and get back on track with proper payments to get to where we needed to be without doing a big impact to our life like that. I'm not sure at where I was right before my proposal that it would have been a good time to have done it, because I was so tired and drained from not knowing how to just fix the problem I had put myself in. The year or two prior, I had thought about doing it, and I was like, let's wait, let's try and get everything in order and make payments and get this all off of there. And it didn't work. It wasn't enough to get us where we needed to be. So I definitely think in the years prior to that, there was a very short time, but it was about 3 years in between the car being gone and completing the proposal, like starting it. If I would have talked to somebody and got some financial help, then I think it would have been okay. But because we didn't, or you're put in a situation where it was either you do it or just keep sitting there.
Do you remember your mindset? Maybe the question is how you felt going through that, I guess, having to choose that. Was there a difference between doing consumer proposal versus bankruptcy? What made you choose one or the other? And then, of course, understanding now in hindsight why you chose the consumer proposal versus another avenue. Not, and even if the other avenue was I didn't have one or I didn't know I had one, because I'm very interested to find out. And I think I know the answer, but I would like to understand, somebody who's been through it. Is it the immediate kind of Band-Aid or solution that you were drawn to? Or did somebody in that industry kind of show you how it could fix everything and that gave you peace of mind? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. So I was actually going in to get a car. I needed one for work. So I was qualifying for 10,000 and under. And they had mentioned, like, hey, with this ongoing, you should talk to our team. So somebody did give me a small amount of guidance, I guess you would say, to say you should talk to our team and see what we can do with this. There wasn't ever a plan of repayment, rebuilding, anything. It was directly into consumer proposal or bankruptcy. Because my debt ratio was really not that bad, we were able to choose a consumer proposal because it was a very small amount. My consumer proposal was $9,000. I, as a proposal or into a bankruptcy, repayment is nothing. That is pennies. That is very minimal from anybody I know that's been in a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy. A while back, he had $24,000 in repayment. So the debt ratio was a lot higher going in. Now, my proposal gave me a bit more flexibility. And I'm not saying that this is still current. This is when I went through it. It's been just over 3 years. Everything could be different. And this is just how I was advised through the team I used. It was anywhere from 5 to 6 years, repayment biweekly. $9,000 was my repayment. But I could pay as much as I wanted at any point in time. So say I got $5,000 from a family member. I could take that $5,000 and drop it on, and it would take the money off. I didn't have to report it. I didn't have to change my income with them. It was basically, they took it, they crunched the numbers, they got the smallest amount I could repay, and now I have to repay it at least within 5 to 6 years. And after 2 years of repayment, anytime that I pay it, if I pay it off in 2.5 years, it stays on my record for 1 more year and then it comes off. Bankruptcy is on there the full 6 to 7 years. You had to complete like monthly inputs with your banking. Like you had to send them your pays if you'd gotten any raises. And if you had gotten raises, it could up the amount that you were paying for a longer period of time. You don't pay as long, from what I gathered, on the bankruptcy. If you don't report that your income has changed, you can get that extra year added. It just stays there a lot longer.
Let me ask you something. So you said in your younger years, your parents tried to say, watch your credit, watch your finance, watch this and that, and you didn't listen. So what is the difference now of a stranger, an advisor telling you the same thing? You said something just now about a second time going into a bankruptcy. Some people get involved in these situations, go through exactly what you went through, and then choose, because it's a choice, to do it again.
Yes.
So why is it that, like, what is going to make it different for you where you're listening down to a stranger is telling you this is what you should do for your financial future? What's going to make you listen now?
I felt embarrassed. It was very embarrassing. You don't want to talk to people about stuff like that. And I think that's another thing is people don't ask for help because it is embarrassing to know that you have made those decisions to just tank your whole financial anything. And there's a lot of people that will judge that. But it can happen to them. It can happen to anybody. Somebody can get sick. You can get in a car accident. Anything can happen. You can lose a family member, lose a friend, just midlife crisis. It happens to anybody, and something, I don't know. I think it's knowing that I don't want to feel like that again. I want to be stable. I want to have a good financial future. I want to keep our home. I want to keep our cars. I want to be able to have something that we can go to in the summer. It's just about being happy and understanding, yeah, we made mistakes, but we can have those nice things if we make the right decisions that aren't going to lead us back into disaster, I guess you would say. If we have some kind of financial background to make sure we're taken care of, or critical illness or anything like that, then it'll keep you grounded, essentially.
You said something there fascinating because you talked about protection just now, like the just in case. You even brought up the term critical illness. I can understand why, considering your husband is going through heart surgery, why that would be so fresh in your mind. Let's talk about that a second. So your husband is going through a major surgery right now due to an illness, right? How impactful is that on now that you guys are a $100,000 income earning household, right? How impactful is that situation on your life now?
Very. So let's say we're about $150,000 income and take $90,000 out of that. A $60,000 home income, roughly.
Wow. What a jump. So from 150 down to 60,000 because something happened unexpectedly. So if he had something in place, that would have given him 1 year of his pay, right?
Yep.
Like cash, tax free. Here it is. We understand you're going through this. Would that have been a cushion?
A big one. It would have been a big one. We did have a bit of a back saving in place because we planned to make sure that in the event of something happening, we would have that, not just for his surgery. If the furnace broke or the air conditioning broke when we turn it on this spring, then we knew, oh, we don't have to add another payment. But it definitely would have put us in a place to not be as scared that, oh my goodness, what's going to happen if it's a longer term that he has to be off work, and how are we going to pay our bills?
So you had a situation where you bought a car, the car broke down, and then on top of it, then you had to pay another $6,000 for an engine. Okay, so you had that scenario happen. Why did you not start putting those factors in place then? How come you had to get repeat situations happening in order to now be conscious of the fact that, oh, maybe we should start thinking about the unexpected? And I'm not picking on you by any means. Everyone does this. So what is the mindset pattern that makes people do this?
You don't think it's going to happen again. That is a big thing. You're like, wow, life kicked me in the butt and it's never going to happen again. That was rough. That sucked. Everything's going to be fine. I think we did everything right. We should have done everything right this time. And then here's life again saying, nope, you did not. Like, you got to find something else that's going to work next time.
Irene, with all the clients that you've spoken to, and do you hear similar like this kind of in the way of a life pattern, similar scenarios happening
Yeah.
with your clients?
Yeah. I have to think back to my clients. I think that question is, I never even thought to ask that question. Bonnie, you said you don't think it'll happen again. And I immediately related because I'm like, yeah, like I've been through rough stuff myself. You learn, but something else hits you. It may not even be similar. It might be something totally different. I'm very actually intrigued to find out. And I think this is a big thing. Okay, so for those of us who's happened once, learn from us. How did you start to create your emergency fund? You said you had a little bit in place before your husband had to go to surgery. What is it that you guys did to create that?
So we definitely had to take some cuts in life. Going out to McDonald's, going out to Harvey's or a restaurant, or buying that extra pair of shoes. I only needed one, but I bought two because I liked both colors. I needed a new pair of shorts for summer, but it was buy two, get one free. So I bought four and got two free, and now I have six.
Yeah.
So it was definitely making those extra decisions to, like, you don't need 6 pairs of pants. You need buy two, get one free. And then any extra money that I knew or he knew we would have spent on takeout or extra things we didn't need, or we didn't have to spend $400 on groceries this week. We spent $3. That extra money went aside.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
time, but it definitely makes a difference.
Totally. And before, everything where you needed to take that out, how long had you guys been doing that? Did it take both of you to talk about that in order to do that?
Yes.
Or did you decide that?
We had to talk about it. If you don't talk to your significant other, if there's two of you living in a home and you are spouses and you guys share money, whether you have the same bank account or you have separate bank accounts, talk about it. Because one person going into financial distress and the other person completely understanding money is not going to make it any stronger. It's not going to make it any better. We had to talk about it and say, hey, we have to do this. We need to have a background. We need to slow down because we live in a whole new world. And if we don't, then we're just going to keep spending and spending with nothing to rely on. And we're going to have to put something on credit. And then we have to find that money to pay that credit off when we could just put the money aside ourselves.
Who started the whole talk?
Not me.
Oh, no, really?
No.
I would have thought it was you. So he started it?
He did.
How did it come? Okay, how is something like you guys were just sitting at the kitchen table and
We had moved into a new house, and we knew that what the house we came from was a semi-detached, 4-level backsplit, beautiful, redone, didn't need any work. The house we moved to was a single dwelling bungalow, very outdated, maybe had the walls painted, and we knew that we were going to run into issues here. And he was like, crunch time, we need to make these decisions. Kind of just a sweet kick back and forth. And we have a really good relationship where we've told each other from day one, we need to talk about anything, sit down and talk about it. Don't get mad. Don't stew. because the other one spent an extra $400. Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe they weren't. Find out why. Why did they spend that money? And was it realistic? Did they need it? Did we need it? Did we need a second car? Did we need a second pool? Or did we need another dog? I wouldn't get a second because I know that financially, that's not a good idea for us to have to feed a whole nother mouth.
You guys have a really healthy approach. You're actually trying to find out why someone is doing something. That's the way you can actually resolve an issue as opposed to just commanding and controlling. You're actually trying to find the why. There's got to be a reason why someone wants to do this. You guys come up with a resolution. You guys are both with the same understanding at that point, which is awesome. That's really good. I'm sure a lot of couples don't do that. They'll just say, no, no, honey, we can't afford that. The person doesn't say anything and they let it stew, like you said. Now they're fighting about something else. That was the reason why they're fighting, is because it sat in them and they festered on it. That's a really healthy approach. I commend you for that. You said you started budgeting and putting money aside. Where did you put that money aside to?
Just a basic savings. It wasn't high interest. It wasn't like any kind of revolving or high risk or low risk. It was just a basic savings account. You kept it over the amount. You didn't have to make a monthly payment. Like you pay $14.95 for your checkings account a month. You didn't have to make that as long as you kept it over a certain amount. There was no increment or growing or anything on it. It was just basic savings just to have it there.
Okay, so what stopped you from reaching in that pocket?
Like into it?
Yeah, because that's what a lot of people try to do. They try to have two accounts and then they use it.
It is very hard. Don't get me wrong. When you look at a bank account, that's a savings account, go, wow, there's $10,000 in there. What can we do with $10,000 and just blow it all in one day? That's exciting. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, we knew, and we talked about it prior to, if we wanted something we wanted and did not need,
That is good.
that is what that was for. It wasn't for fun, spontaneous, anything like that. We were specifically saving to make sure that if a car broke down, we could fix it. If the house broke down, we could fix it, kind of situation.
That's really interesting because I just met with a client the other day who's under 50 but getting close. And during our conversation, our first meeting, when we did a quick financial assessment with her, comment to me is, I feel like an adult now. Because we're having conversations. She's been trying to set money aside, but always dipping into it, right? So there's one of those things where you have to make sacrifices for the now to get to where you want to actually be in the future. Otherwise, you're never going to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that was your mindset, right? When you're thinking, okay, I've got this pot of money, this pot of gold sitting there,
Yeah.
something me, but I have to make this sacrifice right now because otherwise I'm not going to get any further ahead. That's really good. Now, you were really stressing it wasn't growing. It didn't have any return. It was just money sitting there. You were really stressing that. Why were you stressing that so much?
Because knowing what I know now, if we knew that there were accounts that would grow your money that you were putting in to save, we could have went from estimate $10,000 a couple years ago to having $18,000 right now. So we just put our money in and said, hope for the best, and let's hope we have enough in there if we ever need to cover something, where a bank account or an insurance account or whatever kind of account could have been growing that for us while we were putting it in there. And we could have had almost double the amount we put in there to utilize if needed.
I actually want to intervene there. I think what you did was great. There's nothing wrong with putting it in a savings account. I think with everybody who have not actually come to the realization they need an emergency account, let alone the fact that you guys knew what you needed that money for, like to determine what's a real emergency.
Yeah.
But now you know that you've proven to yourself you guys can save that kind of money, which is, I think, a feat in itself, without touching it and making these very conscious decisions about not touching it. Now you can enter into the world of investing it so that you can grow it. But I do agree with you, Tyfani, that putting it into a savings account for somebody who's never done that before is the first baby step, because to Phil's point or Phil's question about what made you not touch it, because so many people would have touched it. I have way more people that probably would have touched it. Heck, they touched their RSPs where they've grown. And you didn't touch your emergency fund. It was just sitting in a savings account, literally within arm's reach. So now you have the discipline to be able to determine that that's not touchable, right? So you can now start putting that into something that could grow for you. For anybody who's listening to this where you haven't actually accumulated $10,000 in a savings account without even wanting to touch it, I think that's the first step. And then if you need to put into a savings account just to even test the waters to see if you have that discipline, because that's what it would entail, is for me to create paperwork so you can take money out of your TFSA because we invested it. I would rather just see if you can even do this and not touch it. No, good on you. And yeah, you're right. You're 100% ready to start making your money work harder for you.
Yeah. And I do recommend, like, anybody that is listening, if you attach it, just a savings and checking account to your debit card, do not let your savings account be accessible through your debit card on purchases. Make it that you have to go into the bank to sign a piece of paper to take that money out. If you don't have that $30, you ain't spending it unless you go to the bank. And 90% of people do not walk into a bank nowadays or go anywhere near it because they don't want cash.
Yeah, good point. Were you a banker? Oh, you sound very much like an advisor already, Tyfani. 100%.
Yeah, you have experienced some things that is, here's the great part about you as an individual. You're actually taking your life experience and implementing the knowledge you've learned from it.
Yes.
Where a lot of people, they just go through it and then they forget that they went through it for some reason and just keep trudging through life and not preparing for the things that they've just experienced to happen again. So mind you, you've had to go through it twice. Okay, so be it. You learned your lesson, right?
Yeah.
So now you're aware and you're still young. That's the great part. Can I say that you're under 30?
Yes. Yes.
So you're under 30 and you're going through this knowledge. Like you could be that 50-year-old that the 20-year-old, the 30-year-olds are admiring. You could be that person. And I think that's where you want to head to. I think that's you and your husband's goal.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to
Just
say, she definitely is on that path right now. Sorry, go ahead, Irene.
No, I was just going to say that you have it sounds like a very wonderful relationship with your husband where you guys can communicate. I think that's a really big point here, right? Is starting to talk about these probably uncomfortable things for him to approach you and say, we need to do this. And for you to like respect him enough to say, yeah, you're right. Because that could have ended up being with the different people, that could have ended up being a fight and you wouldn't be where you're at right now. And I'm not giving your husband full credit, you yourself to see it as well. I think a lot of why, maybe Tyfani, maybe you can agree with me, Phil, but is because they took accountability for the choices that they made. And so by taking accountability and ownership of the mistakes that they felt like they made, that's how they're able to move forward and make different choices. And therefore, like you said, implement all the things that they want and actually action and avoid the mistakes they made again. Because I think people tend to blame the system, right? They do. I mean, it's like April 2025 right now, we're all, and not that this is a political conversation, but a lot of people are talking about the red team versus the blue team here in Canada, and they would sooner blame a team versus take a look at their own backyard as to why they don't have enough money, as to why taxes are going to affect their household income. And here we have Tyfani, who's not even 30, who's already taken reins of her own life without any sort of blame. She just said prices went up. Yeah. She didn't say the government's taking my taxes. We're playing the cards we're dealt, is basically what she said. And she's taking full ownership of it. And I think that's where, again, it comes down to, do you take ownership of the mistakes you've made in the past? And what are you going to do about it? Blame it on my work? I think that was our huge thing. They took accountability for what they did in the past and decided to make a change.
Yeah, like she even said she didn't blame nothing on her work income. She just said it just wasn't enough. That's simple. It wasn't enough. So I'm looking for other ways to bring more income in. They just don't pay me enough. I keep asking for raises. They don't give it to me. And everything else going up. I just don't make enough at this job. So I got to find other sources of income. Simple. So that kind of mentality is what's going to move you forward, right? Like Irene said, you're taking accountability for who you are, your current situation, and you're making it about you and what you need to do, as opposed to it's everyone else's problem and I'm being bombarded by everyone else's problems. That's great, because that's what's going to make you actually that 50-year-old that everyone's admiring.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Now, Tyfani, if there was any single question you had to ask us that's on your mind, is there any like really dominant kind of thing that you would ask an advisor at this point in your life?
Like specifically for our life,
Yes, for you and your husband.
where would be the best place to start for an early retirement than what the government asks you to retire at is the look. I don't want to work until I'm 67 or 65. Nobody does. Most people have to. They don't have an option. Some of them choose to because they just don't want to stop. But a lot of people just have to so that they have that extra income. But how do you become financially independent enough that when you get to 55, 60, you can rely on something that isn't just a working income to help you retire early or even just retire a little earlier and just part-time work and then retire at the age you're supposed to.
And I'm gonna get Irene to answer that question after I ask you a question. Okay?
Yeah.
After I'm gonna ask you a question, then I'll let Irene answer that question for you. But let me ask you this. Do you have any idea? So you said what, around
60.
sorry, again?
55, 60.
Do you know how much money you need to have at 55, 60?
No idea.
So I'm gonna let Irene answer this question then.
I think the question is great that Phil asked, like, do you know how much money you will need? So one of the questions that we ask our clients is, because we actually answer this question in every transaction, we have to. That is our obligation, at least the chosen obligation, is our goal is to help our clients have enough money when they retire, because everybody has to retire. Not everyone wants life insurance, but everyone has to retire because everyone grows old. Now, don't get me wrong, insurance is definitely important. I believe everyone needs some sort of insurance, but let's come back to how much money do I need? The question is, how much money do you need now? Do you think you can live on the kind of income you're bringing in now? And most people say, oh, yeah, okay. Do you plan to be mortgage free by the time you're 60 then? Oh, yeah, I want to do that too. Perfect. So then it's really just math. It's backwards math. It's really, okay, so let's say that let's just say you, Tyfani, you make 100 grand today, and you say, yeah, I can totally live on the kind of income that I'm making right now. And okay, do you plan to be mortgage free? Yes. Okay, so let's just take that expense out of the equation, right? So just take, 30 years from now, because you'll be 60 or less than 60. What is that with inflation? And then go backwards from there. And then we come up with a number where you will need by the time you're 60 to be able to live on what you say non-working income. Passive income is basically what it is. Everyone can have passive income. And that's really what you're asking for, without relying on, like you said, the government to tell you when you can retire. You can literally retire anytime you want. Like at 60, you could still take out your Canada pension plan, but it may not be as much as when you turn 65. And old age security won't kick in until you're 65. So you have to rely on your own passive income until those kick in. You can still retire at 60 or 55. So that's what we would do. And then determine what today do you have to start putting money into so that you can acquire, let's say, $3 million. Let's say that's the number. I don't know what the number is, before you're 60 or 55. And I think it's interesting because people don't ask that question that you have. Tell me how you can retire, how I can retire before the government says that I can retire. So that was a great question. I hope that was valuable to everybody who's watching as well, that this is the kind of question you need to ask.
Yeah. And that's that future awareness that like I said, is going to make you that comfortable person in your later years where your child is going to be older, but you and your husband are going to be able to enjoy each other even more than you are now.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people at that senior years are so fixated on we can't pay our bills that they don't get the opportunity to enjoy each other. That's why it's so important that people reach out at younger years to advisors so then they can get that kind of guidance and literally answer that question you just asked and get the pathway anyway on how to get there. Right? Now, if we were to lay out to you exactly how to get there, everything, lay it all out to you, this is it. And you've already shown this. Would you have the willpower to follow that guidance now? And I'm gonna burden this question with, do you think you would have had that same willpower 5 years ago?
Following a plan, of course. because we're not looking at tomorrow anymore. We're looking at what are we going to do when we retire, or we aren't fully working for a living, and how can we enjoy life when we get there more than we have, like you said. 5 years ago, no, wouldn't have thought about it. 5 years ago, my assumption was, wow, companies don't offer pensions anymore. Nobody's ever told me that if they don't offer the pension anymore, so there's no way you can have an extra way or income when you retire that isn't just based off of what is given to everybody once they attain a certain age. As I got older, obviously, I know that just because pensions aren't offered and just given out by companies anymore, it doesn't mean you can't go and put the money in or do the right things to get your own pension. They're still there. You just have to find them.
You brought that up, and that could be a whole new podcast, but people need to be aware that pensions are just the companies invest. Like when you have a pension, you slip money from your paycheck into your pension.
Yes.
And all the company is doing is talking to an advisor and investing that money. They're doing what you could be doing on your own.
Exactly.
Like literally. Yeah, they don't have pensions anymore because companies are aware that you can do this on your own. So have at it. Man up, and it's time to do it. Right? So that's really the case, because that's all companies were doing. All the pension companies, advisors, literally, when people are retiring, and they'll send you out a notice saying you're going to retire now, we'll give you this window of opportunity to say we're going to continue maintaining your pension and you're going to get this much every month, yada yada, or are you going to find your own advisor?
Yeah.
On the letter, it's literally going to say that to you, and then you get to choose. And most people don't even read it because nobody ever reads letters, right? And they just sign it and send it away, but they don't realize that they could have been shopping for the highest rate of return. And what do you want to do in your retirement? Maximize your passive income. Like, it's really interesting that you brought that up, because people have become more and more educated and the pension is going elsewhere and things of that nature. But it is still, you still are taking money out of your pay every month, every pay. So monthly, biweekly, it doesn't matter. Money is coming out of your pay into their investment company. So why do people struggle with the idea of taking your own money and putting it into an investment company on your own that you've selected? It's literally the same thing. Money is coming out of your pay either way, and people don't realize that. And that all of that is, again, to when you're ready to retire, when it's time to retire, you have that saved up fund for passive income, right? And I'm glad you brought up that that a lot of companies don't do that anymore. They don't have pensions anymore. It's a very select few that do.
No, actually, I think this is a great ending point. I really enjoyed this conversation, Tyfani. You've actually just opened up my eyes to the fact that there are people out there like you that could really hit their financial goals and running. It's the mindset, I think, is a lot about it, and realizing self-awareness is a big part. It sounds like in your situation, how you were able to overcome certain financial challenges in the past. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are going to get value from what you've shared today. So I appreciate your vulnerability, and I hope that moving forward, and it sounds like working together will be fun, and it sounds like it'll work out really well with your experience in your own financial journey. You're going to help a lot of people, especially, and not to downplay your age, but with you being less than 30, there are so many people out there that could really make a difference the way you have. So I appreciate your candidness, and thanks, Phil, for introducing me to Tyfani. I'm looking forward to getting to know you a lot more. What do you say, Phil? Do you think this is a great time to end this conversation?
Oh, no, absolutely. It's funny. You're awesome. You're doing really well. I am really looking forward to helping you on your path. Moving forward with everything, you're able to share your story with as many people as possible, because they need to hear it. They really do, because your story is literally what they're experiencing.
Yes. And I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate it. It's exciting. It's a new adventure, and I'm actually excited about it, which is nice. There hasn't been a career excitement in a long time.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys tune in next time. Comment and subscribe to this channel, guys.